The iPhone X has been covered to death by me and many other people, but there's still one question that remains for folks out there who haven't pulled the trigger on a new phone yet. Maybe they're thinking about it for the holiday season. Is this thing worth the big old price tag? Hey there friends on YouTube, my name is Jason, sometimes known as the JTL, and this is Painfully Honest Tech. Tech so honest it hurts! If this is your first time here and you want more of the most honestest tech reviews that you're gonna find on the YouTubes, then hit the subscribe button, hit the notification, hit all that stuff, and maybe like the video if it is useful to you at all. First thing I want to talk about is the design and the build of the iPhone X. It is beautiful. That might seem like hyperbole, but it's true. This thing is a beautiful device. And incredibly well made. Glass on the front and back. Stainless steel with this smoked out feature on the space gray. It's just a beautiful phone. And the design sort of harkens back to iPhone designs of the past with the curves and the lines, but also goes further and pushes us into the future, even if just from removing the home button and taking us into the buttonless future. The screen itself is the first time, of course, that OLED has been used in an iPhone. They found a balance of the color accuracy of the previous iPhone LED screens, but with the added pop and sharpness of this OLED. And it's not as saturated as some Samsung phones, but it's also not as dull as the most recent Google phones. Okay, so let's talk interface. Now, look at this. Looks like an iPhone, sure. But in order to get this gesture-based interface going, Apple did what Apple often does. They take good ideas that other people have, and then they make them better and they make them work. It doesn't matter that Apple wasn't the first to come up with facial identification or gesture-based input or wireless charging or anything else. When the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus were released, folks railed against Apple and their stale designs. And then the iPhone X came and they hated it because, well, it delivered on pretty much all of its promises. And it's kind of weird to look back at some of the videos that I made several weeks ago and see how far we've come in just a month's time. I love the flashlight and camera buttons on the lock screen. It makes it really easy to get to the things that I need most often. It would be nice if Apple gave us a choice of, customizing that a little bit, but they don't. Maybe in the future. What do you think, Apple? There's no fast charger in the box, which it goes against what most other manufacturers in the Android space do, even though the iPhone is capable of fast charging. Now, I wasn't going to spend $85 or $75 or whatever it's going to cost to get the fast charger for the iPhone X. So what I decided to do, since I have multiple iPads and all kinds of, I seem to have like more iPad chargers than I do iPads, I decided to try this thing out and see how fast does the iPad charger charge the iPhone X compared to what they say the fast charging rate would be. And I found that it's pretty darn comparable. And I can do a video on that particular functionality. If you guys are interested, I can compare iPhone X charger to super fast charging iPhone $75, $85 charger. Let me know down in the comments if you want to see that happen. I guess since it's a smartphone video, we should talk about the camera. I am not a camera geek. I'm more of a camera utilitarian. I mean, portrait mode is fun, but it's just a feature. It works well on the back camera, not so great on the front camera. Overall, I find the camera to be on par with the best of the best. It's really personal choice which one you think is better. This camera app on this phone is easier to use and get into, I find, than a lot of the camera apps on Android phones. And that's by design, of course. I get it. For some of you who want to just do the open and shoot thing, which I think most of us do anyway, you can do that with this very easily. Battery life. This is one place where iPhones of smaller form factors have kind of fallen down in the past. 4.7-inch iPhone has always had really unacceptable battery life, in my opinion. The iPhone Plus models have been great on battery in my experience, and that's why I've typically carried the Plus models as opposed to the smaller ones. I like bigger phones. Anyway, at first I was a little bit worried about the battery in this phone, but over time I found that the battery life was more than adequate. I was getting done with my day with at least 30%, if not a little bit less, and sometimes a little bit more battery at the end of every day. And that, to me, is the sweet spot. Also, I want to cover some things in the UI that people don't like. People don't like the swipe down thing from the corner. I do like it. I find it very useful, but I'm a two-handed phone user anyway. I always hold it in one hand and use this. I don't know. Some people, I guess, use only one hand. So now we hit the important question. One I spent a month thinking about as I used this phone. Is it worth $1,000 plus tax or $1,150 plus tax? Let's get this out of the way. Not everything is perfect with this phone. I still don't know how to stop this from shaking except for just turning off the phone and then turning it back on. And I always take a screenshot when I use the power button because that's unfortunate. Sometimes when you're looking at an app in here and there's stuff that you need to do down at the bottom of the screen, part of it is obscured. And that's kind of a pain in the ass because you can't really get to see it. That's something that'll get worked out. The text, sometimes the notifications, the text ends up being outside of the box. But again, that's something that's going to get fixed. Sometimes when you're in full screen mode, you have to swipe twice to get out of full screen mode and back to the home screen. First, you have to kind of wake up the little bar that you have to swipe, and it's always on the side and not on the bottom. And then you have to swipe it in order. It's just kind of annoying, and maybe that'll, the annoyance is on par with, swiping up to get to the software buttons on Android as well when you have them hidden in full screen apps. And all of this will get fixed, at least on the Apple device. I think with Android, that's a feature and not a bug, but it does kind of annoy me. And yes, as I said, it's the most beautiful phone Apple has ever made, and it's also one that will take damage pretty easily. And it's also the one that costs the most. I think it's $549 to replace the back panel if you get it broken. So get that Apple Care if that's something that you're really... Apple Care is always a good idea, but it's expensive. It's expensive here too. Okay, negative things out of the way. Apple got a lot of the make or break stuff right with this phone. For a phone that's this much of a change from the previous model, it's almost an entirely different kind of interface model from the home button model. It's surprising how little trouble there has been. There have been no gates. There have been no crashes. There have been small things that have been addressed and gotten fixed, but there hasn't been anything big that has really sort of made this phone not work the way that it's supposed to. And that is kind of surprising in this day and age of smartphones. Some people care that there's this notch. I don't care about the notch. Not at all. I think now I look at it as actually part of the design and part of what makes the iPhone X look distinct. Apple has always kind of taken weird design quirks and made them iconic features of devices. And the notch is really no different than this. Remember how weird the scroll wheel was on the iPod? But it became the identifying mark of the iPod. The same thing's going to happen with the iPhone X. And eventually the notch will go away, just like the scroll wheel did on the iPod. They've made the best of an imperfect situation. I think it's kind of nice. I know. I said I was afraid they'd started to really lose their magic and we were finally starting to see the effects of life without Steve Jobs, and that may still be the case, but they pulled the iPhone X straight out of their hind parts and proved that they can still do something that company has always done, take good ideas sometimes from other people and make great products out of them. Don't hate them because they're beautiful. Most users out there, I don't care about any of that stuff. The majority of people want to know if the phone is good, if they'll regret spending the ridiculous amount of money it costs, if it'll confuse them. I'm here to say no. It's still an iPhone, okay? At its core, it works, it functions like an iPhone. It's actually the best iPhone that Apple has ever made. It takes familiar experience and refines it, makes it a little bit more immersive and intuitive. It's well made. It feels expensive in a way that most other phones don't. It has heft to it. It's refined in how it uses its materials. There's a ton of attention paid to making it feel good to hold and use, and that's been a hallmark of the iPhone since its inception. If you were paying out of pocket for this phone, then no. I mean, it's a lot of money for anybody to just like plop down on the table and say, here, take my $1,200. But most of us are on some kind of plan where we can spread it out for $40 a month or something like that. Next year we'll get the next iPhone. In that case, yes, this phone is absolutely worth the price tag that they're asking for it. If you want an iPhone, this is the iPhone you should buy. It's the latest and greatest. If you want a headphone jack, you can buy the iPhone 6S or 6S Plus. I've made videos about how it's still a great phone, actually surprisingly great. Still has a headphone jack. You'll pay $250, $300, whatever they're asking for this, for AppleCare, because even with protection, this thing is expensive to repair. But I can't say it's not worth what it costs. If that's what it costs to get this kind of experience, I'll pay it. There's something about it that's unlike any other phone. Sure, there are cheaper, perfectly good cell phones out there. I'm sure there will be plenty of comments in the plenty of people talking in the comments down below about how you could get the OnePlus 5T and save $500. There are a lot of good phones out there, but there aren't a lot of great phones, and there aren't a lot of iPhones. The iPhone 10 is a really great phone, and it's an iPhone. To all the haters out there, I was skeptical too. But Apple brought the goods this time. If you're not a fan of Apple products, that's fine. I'm not too proud to say that I was way off when I doubted Apple on the iPhone 10 front. It's not perfect, but it's a lot more than I ever expected. They pushed the smartphone window a little bit further open than it was before. They took a few big steps, and they did it while still creating beautiful hardware that just works. And that's been the hallmark of an iPhone forever. And if you don't like it, well, that's too bad. Just deal with it. So once again, thank you all for being here. I really do appreciate it. My name's Jason, sometimes known as the JTL. This is Painfully Honest Tech. Tech so honest it hurts. Until the next time, I'm out.